Okay, so I will sort of follow up with what Amritanshu just talked about. I will talk about eigenvalues and eigenvectors, which I think must be certainly a familiar topic, at least at the level of computing these objects for matrices and so on. What I have in mind is to maybe talk about some applications and places where they come up in a natural way. So please feel free to interrupt me as many times as necessary and ask me to slow down or repeat and things like that. So let's just start with recalling this by example. So what I want to talk about is eigenvalues and eigenvectors. So I'll just start with an example, and maybe you can help me finish the computation. So suppose I have a matrix 2 cross 2 given by this, and I want to compute its eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Okay. So what do I do? How do I start doing this? What? Determinant of this minus lambda I. Okay, fine. So determinant of, so we start out by doing this. We compute determinant of A minus lambda times the identity. So which in this case is 2 minus lambda 1, and the equation we want to solve is this equal to 0. Right? So solving this equation will give us two values of lambda, which we call the eigenvalues, right? Okay, so maybe just before we actually finish the calculation, so what is it that determinant being 0, what does it imply? What does it tell you about the resulting matrix? Suppose lambda is an eigenvalue, right? Say lambda is 1 is an eigenvalue. Then if I calculate the matrix A minus lambda times identity, A times A minus identity for example, then what can I say about that matrix? It is? Yes? It is? No, I can't hear you too. It is singular. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. It's not invertible, right? So essentially your condition here is you're trying to find values of lambda which will make this singular, which will make this non-invertible, right? So that is the point. Okay, so let's actually do the calculation. Determinant is 2 minus lambda, 3 minus lambda, minus 1 into 2. So that's lambda square minus 5 lambda plus 6 minus 2. So that's lambda minus 1 into lambda minus 4. So this is, so lambda is 1 or 4. So those are the two eigenvalues in this case. And we must then find the corresponding eigenvectors, right? So which is, so for example, if we take lambda equal to 1, so what do? We look at A minus lambda times identity. So lambda is 1 times identity, right? So eigenvector by definition is something which satisfies Ax is lambda x, or in other words A minus lambda times identity should kill that vector x, right? So we are finding vectors which are in the null space of A minus lambda times identity. So let's solve this equation. So we must solve this equation. So we have A minus 1 times identity times x is 0. So that is, let's plug in 1. So we have 2 minus 1 times x. So let's call x as x1, x2 is 0. So I must solve, I get two equations now. I need to solve for x1 and x2. The two equations are x1 plus x2 is 0, and well, it's the same equation again. right? And this is how it always is, because it's a singular matrix. There aren't those many linearly independent conditions. One condition is always, it will typically several conditions, for example, might be redundant. You may have fewer than n conditions. So therefore x1 is minus x2, right? So there are several solutions, so we pick, we can pick any one, right? So for example here we can take x2 is 1, or whatever, x1 is 1, and we get 1 comma minus 1. So that is the eigenvector corresponding to this eigenvalue, right? Now let's do the same thing for 4. We will find out what the eigenvector is. So we have a minus 4 times identity times x is 0. So I have 2 minus 4 is minus 2 minus 1 1 2 times x is 0. So by the same token, what should x be? So I have minus 2x1 plus x2 is 0. So I can take 1 comma 2. Okay, so I found two eigenvalues, 1 and 4, for these two eigenvectors, right? So this procedure, I'm sure, is familiar, right? This is how we do this. Okay, so why do we do this? What in your mind are reasons for wanting to find eigenvalues and eigenvectors for matrices? Are there situations where it is necessary or important or simpler if you could find the eigenvalues? Do you know of any applications? So why do we find eigenvalues and eigenvectors? That's really the question.
A represents a transformation.
Right.
Transformation.
Yes.
So if you take a vector, we are looking at those vectors, so which are transformed by A into constant multiple of itself.
Absolutely right. Yes. So the geometric content of what it means to do eigenvalues and eigenvectors is the following. You can think of a matrix as representing a linear transformation. So for example, if I have a 2 cross 2 matrix, then you should think of it as a linear transformation which, for example, maps the plane R2 to itself, right? So a linear transformation is a strange object, can do all kinds of things to the plane. For example, it can rotate by something, it can scale vectors, right? It can sort of multiply everything by some constant, or it can reflect, it can do several things to the plane. It can deform it in some strange way, I mean in a linear way still. And so for example, if you take, say, a square, say the square of size 1, 1 cross 1 square with one side as the origin, then under this, say under a linear transformation, what kind of object does it become? Can it become a circle, for example? Can this boundary become a circle? No. It is again a square, that's one possibility. More generally, what else? Parallelogram, right? So that's probably where the geometric definition of determinants comes in. So this square is always transformed into a parallelogram, okay? So these two sides will become some two parallel sides, the other two sides can become this. So this is, sort of a snapshot of what the linear transformation does, to one particular object, but that's kind of representative of what it does to everything. So this square transforms into funny shape. It need not even be in the first quadrant, it can be in some other quadrant also. It can also be rotated by some larger angle. So you can think of this as what the square does. As what the linear transformation does. It takes this fellow, it sort of increases its area in some way, it deforms the two sides, it changes the angle between the two sides, and it rotates the whole thing by some angle, right? These are all the things it does, and this area of this guy relative to that is the absolute value of the determinant, right? For example, that's where determinants come in this context. So what do eigenvalues and eigenvectors mean? So it says we want to understand this somewhat complicated transformation in the following sense. We want, for example, this is what a general transformation will do, but the transformations that are nice are the ones which map, say here's the square. It doesn't change the angle between these two things. So it maps this square back to some rectangle, which is again like this. So it changes one side by some proportion, it changes the other side by some proportion. For example, it can multiply this side by a factor of 5 and it can shrink this side by, say, by a factor of half. Okay? So if these kinds of transformations where this square is mapped to just the two sides still are getting mapped to the same two sides. X-axis maps to x-axis, y-axis maps to y-axis. The only thing that is changing is some stretching or contraction, some factor is different. Okay? So these are sort of our, these are, let's say, the simple linear transformation. They are the simpler ones. They are the simpler linear transformations. In some sense, they are simpler to understand because the x-axis and y-axis, the two axes, are sort of just getting mapped to themselves but with some scale factor. These are the more complicated ones because they are doing all kinds of things to that square, right? Taking to some funny parallelogram and also with some scale factor. So the idea with eigenvalues, eigenvectors is the following. This is the most general linear transformation. We want to somehow understand these fellows by somehow reducing it to such simpler transformations. Okay, so this is a general linear transformation, looks like this, but given one such fellow, given a general linear transformation, we want to somehow convert it into a linear transformation which looks like this. Okay, so we want to make this picture look like that, and that conversion procedure is exactly what eigenvalues and eigenvectors will do. Okay. And why is that? Because what is it that we are doing? We are finding two vectors, right? What does an eigenvector mean? Ax is lambda x. It is a vector x which under the matrix is getting mapped to some multiple of itself. Okay. So what does it mean? I have a vector and it is just becoming, it's stretched by some amount or contracted by some amount. It can also be multiplied by a negative number. The same thing to the other guy. There are two such vectors in this example. Each of them they have the property that the transformation either stretches or contracts that vector, but does not change its direction. It does not rotate it or do anything to it. Okay. So in some sense, you can think of the eigenvalue procedure as trying to do this. You want to reduce a general transformation to the simpler kinds of transformations. Okay. So that is one answer to the question of why you want to compute eigenvalues. Now, so any questions so far or any comments? So what I want to look at next is some applications which are also in some sense along the same theme, which also provides a second answer to the question of why you want to compute eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Okay, and this example is in the context of differential equations, so ordinary differential equations, which I think Professor Kesavan probably talked about this morning. So I'm not sure if we talked about these kinds of equations. So let's say the simplest kinds of equations are the following. So for me, t is the variable. So I'm going to think of x as a function of t. So the simplest kinds of differential equations are things where I only have one derivative. So it's dx dt is, let's say, some multiple of x. For example, this is a very simple differential equation, right? Linear first order equation. Now, so what is the solution to this? E to the 2t, right? Of course, times some possible constant in front, which you can determine from initial conditions. So that's the solution to this differential equation. Now, let's make this a little more complicated. Instead of one function of t, I have two functions of t. And instead of one equation, therefore, I need two equations. One which tells me what the derivative of x1 is, another which tells me what derivative of x2 is. And let's say my equations look like this. dx1 dt is 2x1, dx2 dt is 3x2. Okay, so you would, such a thing is what you would call a system of equations, right? There are two functions which are unknowns, and there are two equations for those two guys. So here's a system of equations. So what is the solution to this system of equations? What is x1? Some constant times e to the 2t. x2, well, it is some other constant times e to the 3t, right? So even though I said it is really a system of equations, we are just solving it by treating each equation as a separate, separate system. So this is, so I don't know if this terminology is known, this is what you might call an uncoupled system of equations. Okay, here are two equations, but in some sense they are not coupled to each other. One equation only involves x1, another equation only involves x2. So this is an uncoupled system of equations. And those are very easy to solve because you just solve the usual one variable equation. Okay, but what is interesting is to solve coupled systems of equations, and they occur all the time. So what is a coupled system? Let's take an example. So let's look at a coupled system. So for example, I can take I have two equations in two unknowns, but notice now that this is a coupled system in the sense that this equation involves a derivative of x1 involves both x1, x2, the other fellow also involves both x1, x2, right? And let's say I am given some initial conditions. So with some initial conditions, okay, so whatever, let's say x1 at 0 is something, I mean this doesn't matter, I can choose any numbers I want. So try and solve this equation, that would be our question. Okay. So here's one possible way of proceeding. We could say that, well, look, these are the easy equations to solve, right? If you have an uncoupled system, it makes life very easy to solve. I mean, it makes our life very easy. So let's try and do the following. Let's take this coupled system of equations and somehow try to uncouple them. Okay. So what I'm wanting to do is to try and uncouple these equations. Okay. What does it mean to uncouple these equations? Let's actually do it by example. So let me pick. So what I want to do is the following. Well, I will tell you what the uncoupling is in this case, and we'll sort of see where it comes from. So let's do the following. Let's change variables. Okay. So I had my two unknown functions x1 of t and x2 of t. Instead, we will define two other functions called y1 of t and y2 of t. So let's define these two functions. Y1 is 2x1 minus x2, and let's say y2 is x1 plus x2. Okay. So let's try and see what are the equations obeyed by y1 and y2. Okay, so what is dy1 dt and what is dy2 dt? Okay, I want to find the equations for my new variables. So let's do this. What is dy1 by dt? it's just 2 times, I must do derivative, 2 times dx1 dt minus dx2 dt. So it's 2 dx1 dt minus dx2 dt. So what is that? dx1 dt I know from those equations are 2x1 plus x2. So let's plug that in. So this is 2 times 2x1 plus x2 minus 2x1 plus 3x2. So what does that become? Two x1, 4 minus 2, 2 minus 3. Okay, what is that? It is y1. Okay, now let's do dy2 dt similarly. It is x1 plus x2, so it is dx1 dt plus dx2 dt. So I need to add those two things. 4x1 plus 4 times x1 plus x2, what is that? Okay. Now what have I gotten? Why are these two y1, I mean these new variables y1, y2, in what sense are they better than x1, x2? The system is uncoupled, right? So you see dy1 dt has just become y1 and dy2 dt has become 4y2. Okay, so I now have a new system of equations. So let's write dy1 dt is y1 so those are my new equations, which means I can solve them instantaneously, right? What is y1? Some constant times e to the t, so y1 is therefore some constant e to the t, y2 is some constant e to the 4t. Okay, so these are now uncoupled. So we have managed to uncouple a coupled system of equations. This is fine. Okay, now so what did we get? dy. So what are my new equations like? dy1 dt is 1 times y1 and this is 4 times y2. Yes, absolutely. So it's not a coincidence. Where did you see 1 and 4 before? Well, they were the eigenvalues of what matrix? Two, 1, 2, 3, right? So it's not a coincidence. So it seems that the example I started out with, the matrix 2, 1, 2, 3, which are the coefficients of, so I've written a coupled system, therefore there are 4 coefficients, right? 2, 1, 2, 3. So you form a matrix out of these two, 2, 1, 2, 3, that's the matrix. And when you uncouple this system of equations, it ended up giving you 2 numbers here in front of y1 and y2. They are exactly the eigenvalues of this matrix. Okay. At the moment we are just making an empirical observation from this particular example, right? But it turns out that this is actually a general phenomenon. Okay, and so therefore, I mean I will say more about this, but now here is another answer to the question of why you want to compute eigenvalues and eigenvectors, because what you often end up with are coupled systems of linear equations. You know, when you want to do when you actually want to work with real life systems or situations like that, you will almost invariably get coupled systems. Now when you try and uncouple them, what you end up having to do is really find eigenvalues and eigenvectors of the coefficient matrix. So eigenvalues, eigenvectors give you a way of uncoupling a coupled system of equations. That's the moral of this this example. Absolutely. So that is also correct. So, and these things here, so how did I choose y1 and y2? Well, it will turn out that these coefficients 2, -1, 1, 1 are also related to the eigenvectors corresponding to those eigenvalues, right? So I will explain this in just a minute. So let us see, how did we guess the y1, y2? So the first thing is the following. So how do we set this matrix up? Here are just two equations. How do we bring a matrix into the picture? So what we will do is we will think of this pair x1, x2 as a single object. Okay, so let's define capital X to be the column vector x1 of t, x2 of t. So it's again a function of t, but it's a vector valued function of t. So you should think of x of t, it's a function of t, but the value is a vector. Right? At every t it is a vector, column vector of size 2. So it's a vector valued function of t, and this set of equations here you can think of as the following. So these two things I can equivalently write as follows: d capital X of t by dt. Okay, what is d capital of X of t by dt? That by definition is this. First component is so this is x. d dt of x means you do d dt on the first component, d dt on the second component. You do differentiation on both of them. So I do dx1 dt, dx2 dt. So that is my dx dt. Now on the other side, what is it that I have? It is ax, right? So observe 2x1 plus this etc. is what I will get if I take a and I multiply it by x1, x2. So therefore my equation can be written like this. It is d capital X by dt is the matrix A times X. Okay. Now this actually looks, the form of this looks like just a single variable equation, right? See, if instead of a vector I had just one function, then dx dt would just equals, and if a is a number, this is like our usual uncoupled system, like d small x by dt is 2x. It looks a lot like that, except the number 2 or constant in front has now become a 2 cross 2 matrix, and x is not a single function, it's actually a shorthand for two functions. So even though it looks very much like that, it's so I mean, let me say this a little more. If this equation here looks like this kind of one variable equation, dx dt is ax, right? Now where a is just a number, this equation we know how to solve in one stroke. Again, x is e to the at, right, times some constant in front. So x is some constant times, so let's forget the constant for the moment, it's e to the at. Okay, so that is easy. Now if you have a matrix, then the question is, can I sort of just use the same thing? Can I just say, for example, that this is e to the at, right? Here a is a number and I am talking about e to the at, right? I understand this, it's exponential of, it's the exponential function. So here I'll put this within quotes. This is what I would like to say, x is e to the at, because the form of the equation looks very similar, right? So this would be, of course, the best thing to have, right? Is this familiar at all? Has anybody seen such a quantity before? No. Okay. So observe, why is this an unfamiliar quantity? You are taking E and raising it. What is on top is a matrix. A is a 2 cross 2 matrix. AT will just mean you put T everywhere. 2T, T, 2T, 3T. That's a 2 cross 2 matrix. And what you want to do is to exponentiate a matrix. Okay. You want to say E power some matrix. Okay. So I'm not going to talk too much about this, but it turns out this is actually correct. It turns out that one can exponentiate matrices. Okay. So this is actually possible, and this also gives you a solution to the system of equations. Okay. Here is a way of solving the system of equations. You take the coefficient matrix and you exponentiate it. Okay. Now whatever that means, and if you can do it, you still get a solution. Okay. Now just one last thing I'll say about exponentiating matrices. How would one possibly define such an object? How can you define the exponential of a matrix? We understand exponential of a number, right? Or do we? What is exponential of x, or what is exponential of t? How is it defined? E to the something? It's actually not such a simple question as it looks like initially. If I just want e to the x, even that is not such a trivial thing, right? You need to get one's head around this idea. What is e to the x really? Yeah? It is a series. That's the thing. That's more or less the only definition we have, right? So of course after that we sort of look at the various properties of e to the x, and it's now so familiar that we don't really go back and think about it as what is it, what was it actually defined as. But the only definition we have is as a series really. That's the sort of the primordial definition. It is 1 plus x by 1 factorial, x square by 2 factorial, and so on. Correct? So if I give you a number and ask you to calculate e power x using this definition, all you should be able to do is to find out what is x power 1, you should be able to square, you should be able to cube, and so on. You should be able to calculate every power of x. If you are able to do that, you can calculate e power x, there is no problem at all, right? By the same token, if you wanted to calculate e power some matrix, okay, how would you define it? Well, there is only one obvious thing to do. You define e power a matrix. Say if I want to define e power a, I will say this is, instead of 1 I will put the identity matrix. Remember, my answer should be a matrix now. Now instead of x I will put, x is a here, a by 1 factorial, a square by 2 factorial, a cubed by 3 factorial, and so on. Now what is a square, a cubed, and so on? Do those things make sense? Given a matrix, they are all matrices, right? Square, cube, power 4, everything is a matrix. We know how to calculate powers of matrices. It's not as easy as calculating powers of numbers, right? Because you must do multiplication of a 2 cross 2 matrix with itself to calculate a square. So there are several multiplication. You must keep doing row, column, and so on. So it's not a trivial thing, but well, in principle we do know how to do this. A square, a cubed, a power 4, all of them we know, right? So here is how you would define. This is the most natural way to define it. So here is in fact the definition. You say given a matrix A, you define the exponential in this way. It is again a series, but each term of the series is a 2 cross 2 matrix, which is some power of the original matrix divided by some factorial. Okay, so you sum up this series, it will be some complicated 2 cross 2 matrix, but that is the answer. That is our definition of e power a. So here is an in principle answer to this question. It turns out that resulting series has the property that if you take its derivative, you will just get a times the original series. Right? The same way in which you prove that e power x has the same property. When you take derivative, you get back the function. How do you do it? You differentiate the series, and you see that you will get back the series itself. Right? If you differentiate the series, what do you get? You get the same series, term by term differentiation. Same thing here. You do differentiation here, you will see that you will end up with the same thing. So here is one answer to this question. You can actually do it the same way in which you solve this equation. Okay, but that's not a, it's only an in principle answer, because that still doesn't help us. We finally want a solution to the original problem. I want you to tell me what is x1 of t and what is x2 of t, right? In explicit terms, not as some, only in principle answer like that. Okay, so that is where the eigenvalues business comes in. So here for this 2 cross 2, let's come back here. I want to solve this 2 cross 2 system, coupled system, and I know how to find eigenvalues and eigenvectors of A. So we have actually written out the eigenvalues and eigenvectors in this case. So for A equals 2, 2, 1, 3. So what were the eigenvalues were 1 and 4, and corresponding to 1 I had, so let me do the following. Let me write the 2 eigenvalues as a diagonal matrix, okay, 1 and 4, and what are the 2 corresponding eigenvectors for 1? So let me write those as a column matrix, as a 2 cross 2 matrix. For 1, the eigenvector we found was 1 comma 1 comma minus 1, that was the eigenvector for 1, 1 2 was the eigenvector for 4, right. So I have arranged it as a diagonal matrix consisting of the eigenvalues, 2 cross 2 matrix whose 2 columns are the 2 eigenvectors, right. So have you seen these before? P and D, I mean I use those names for a reason, right. So what does diagonalizability mean? What can you get if you get eigenvalues and eigenvectors? Using these pieces of data, how do I reconstruct my matrix A? P? PD, P inverse, right. So this again I am sure is a familiar statement. This is called the diagonalizability theorem. If you find eigenvalues and eigenvectors, what does it help you do? It helps you decompose the original matrix A in a certain more convenient form. Okay, so what it does is it has decomposed the matrix A as some P times a diagonal matrix times the inverse of P. Okay, so this is by the diagonalizability theorem. Okay, fine. So I have this. Now, why does something like this help me to solve my system of equations? So let's go back and write our system of equations. It looked like dx dt so d capital X dt is a times x, but a I am going to write as this more convenient decomposition, PD P inverse. Okay. Now what do we have? Dx dt is P times d P inverse x. Okay. Now you multiply, let's do the following. Let's multiply both sides of this equation by P inverse on the left. Okay. So let's do P inverse times dx dt is, so that this P goes away, it's d times P inverse x. Okay. Now what is here? P inverse is some 2 cross 2 matrix. Dx dt is just column vector with dx1 dx2, I mean dx1 dt dx2 dt. But this thing is the same as, so the left hand side I claim is the same as, you first do P inverse x. Okay, so I am saying you first do derivative of x and then you differentiate and then you multiply by P inverse, but I am saying that this is the same thing as first taking x, multiplying it by P inverse and then doing differentiation. Okay. Now one way to see this is by the product rule for derivatives. Okay, that's actually also true in the context of matrices. So if you just believe me for a second, if I try to do product rule on this product, what will I get? First term is, I'll get two terms. First term is derivative of P inverse times x. Second term is P inverse times derivative of x. But P inverse is a constant matrix. It doesn't have any t in it. It just has 4 numbers consisting of the inverse matrix of P. That's all. Right. So P inverse, for example, let's calculate P inverse here. So 2 cross 2 matrix inverse is very easy, right? So you just do dA minus B minus C and divide by the determinant, which is 3 in this case. So that's the inverse of this matrix. So P inverse is just some 4 numbers. It's a constant. So if I do derivative of this matrix, it is 0. Derivative again means you should do derivative for every entry. Okay, so derivative is 0, so that term I will not get. If I try to do product rule for this product, I will only get one surviving term, which is this one. The other term is 0. Okay, so it's the same. Okay, now why does this look better? Because so let's now change variables. So this is the uncoupling step. So as it will become clear in a moment, what this has managed to do for us is now to produce an uncoupled system of equations. Okay. So what do I mean by that? So you look at P inverse x, it appears on both sides of my equation. So I will call that as my new vector y. So y again is 2 variables, y1, y2. Okay, so let's define y as So this is the, I mean, this is just another name for y. So I will define y as P inverse x. So let me remove this for the moment. So let's define a 2 cross 2, I mean 2 cross 1 vector y as P inverse x. Okay. So I have just changed my variable because this equation contains that P inverse x. So now in terms of y, what does this equation become? Okay, my equation now becomes dy by dt equals diagonal matrix times y. Okay, so let's write this out fully. When I say y, it's again a, there are two components. So now I will expand this equation out back in terms of the two guys. So this means dy1 dt, that's the first component, is, so okay, let's write the equation out fully. dy1 dt, dy2 dt, that's this. D is the matrix consisting of 1 and 4. Right? So d by dt is dy is what I have written. So now let's see, the right hand side is what? This is a diagonal matrix. That's a very important thing here. Because you have diagonalized it, this only involves y1. The second fellow only involves y2. Correct? So now what is the resulting equation? It is two equations, but they are uncoupled. Right? So therefore the final set of equations looks like, so I have dy1 dt so dy1 dt is y1, dy2 dt is 4y2, right? And so those are the uncoupled equations which we can solve. Therefore we know how to solve for these. Y1 is some constant times e to the t, y2 is some constant times e to the 4. Okay, so let us just check that this y1 y2 is the same as the y1 y2 that I sort of gave you, in the beginning. Okay, so let us see, we know what y is, right? How is it defined? Y is, you take P inverse times x, that's the definition of y. So let's do it. We know P inverse, we know x, so let's calculate y. So in our case y is P inverse times x. P inverse is 1/3 2 minus 1 1 1 times x is x1 x2. So this is 1/3, so what will I get? 2x1 minus x2 is x1 plus x2. Okay, so I've just done P inverse times x and that's my answer. So therefore what is y1? The first component of y is 2x1 minus x2 divided by 3. y2 is x1 plus x2 divided by 3. Right? So are these the same as the y1 y2 we had initially? Almost up to the divided by 3. That's only a constant, right? So instead of this, you can always take any constant times this, and the two equations will look the same because you can always multiply. See, instead of y1, if dy1 dt is y1, instead of y1 I choose 3y1, I will still get the same equation because I will multiply both sides by 3, or same for y2, right? So it's almost the same as what we had, except it's differing by a constant, right? Okay, so so any questions on this procedure itself? So what does this tell us? Well, in this case we started out wanting to uncouple or decouple a system of coupled equations, and I sort of gave you the y1 y2 by magic, in the beginning. In general you can do trial and error maybe if it's a 2 cross 2 system, but imagine you had an n cross n system. You have n equations with n coupled, it's again all the x and the dx dt and so on will be a column vector of size n. A will be an n cross n matrix. Then the derivation that we did here does not need 2 cross 2, right? It works in complete generality. For any n cross n, this derivation will work. So if you have such a system, well, all you will do is, here's how you will uncouple it or decouple it. You do this process and you will get P inverse x. You define your y as P inverse of x. Okay, how do you find that magic y? Well, you find the eigenvector matrix P, you take its inverse and you multiply by x. Whatever you get is your y. That is the one that's going to decouple your system of equations. Okay, so it's a process that works in general. It'll do it for any n cross n, for any n cross n system. Okay, so any questions on? Okay, so let me ask you a question then, maybe. So this is almost done because I only solved for y1, y2. What? Okay. How do I get x1, x2? In the end, after all, my goal was to find a solution for x1 and x2, right? So how do you find x1 and x2 back? Well, there's one of two things. So remember, how is y1? I know y1 and y2, which means y1 is, I know it is some e to the t, y2 is some e to the 4t. So therefore, I can think of this as giving me two equations for y1 and y2. So in our earlier example, we didn't take divided by 3, right? So let me just go back to my earlier choice of y1, y2. These were our y1 and y2. So we know y1 is some this fellow, y2 is this fellow, which means I have two equations in x1 and x2, just two linear equations which I can solve for x1 and x2, right? Well, that's one way of saying it, but it's actually much easier because remember, I know how to solve it, right? Y is P inverse times x, so I just multiply by P, that's all. So how do I finally find x? So the final solution is obtained as follows: you solve y and then you multiply back by P. And the solution for y is actually known. What does y look like? In general, so here is 2 cross 2 example. We know what y looks like. It looks like C1 times the first eigenvalue times t. Right? I will call the two eigenvalues as lambda 1 and lambda 2 in general. In our example, lambda 1 is 1 and lambda 2 is 4. Right? But what is the diagonal matrix? Remember the constants that you got, that was the observation we made, right? That these two constants are always the eigenvalues of the matrix. Why did we get that? Because those are the entries of D. They come from the matrix D, therefore you get the eigenvalues. So in general, what is the solution for y? Okay, let me write this out properly. Say more generally in say an arbitrary 2 cross 2 situation, I will write P D P inverse. D will look like this, some two eigenvalues times P inverse, and in this case I know what the equation for y looks like. So dy1 dt will be lambda 1 y1, dy2 dt will be lambda 2 y2. So therefore, I solve for y1 and y2. That's some lambda 1t, lambda 2t. Okay, so these two I solve, and then how do I come back to calculate x? X is just p times y. So P is some matrix, some 2 cross 2 matrix, some A, B, C, D, times what does y look like? Y is y1, y2. So y1 is C1 e to the lambda 1t, C2 e to the lambda 2t. Okay, so that is the form of the answer. I don't know P, of course. P is some 4 entries, there will be the eigenvectors, but from here I can at least see what the form of the answer looks like, right? Because now I will expand this out. What will I get when I multiply this matrix by that? What will the first entry look like? It's some combination of these two functions, e to the lambda 1t and e to the lambda 2t, because it's ac1 e lambda 1t plus bc2 e lambda 2t. The bottom is some other combination, cc1 plus dc2, right? So in general, you should always think of it as follows. It's some alpha e to the lambda 1 t, or maybe I won't use alpha. Let me call it, okay, maybe I will call it alpha. Alpha e to the lambda 1 t, beta e to the lambda 2 t, gamma e to the lambda 1 t, plus some delta e to the lambda 2 t. So that is your x1, x2. Okay, so this actually tells us the following. If you had a coupled system of equations, then before, without having to do the whole process, you can deduce what the form of the solution is, right? And what is the form of the solution? Both these unknowns, x1 and x2, are both some linear combinations of this exponential e to the lambda 1 t and e to the lambda 2 t. Okay, you can say right in the beginning they must be of these forms. Okay, so in order to write down these forms, I only need to know the eigenvalues. I don't need the eigenvectors themselves to do this, right? And to find alpha and beta, you can either use the eigenvector matrix if you know it, or if not, you can always substitute initial conditions. Right? You will be given some initial condition. If it's an initial condition problem, you will be given some initial conditions, and you can sort of substitute those initial conditions and try and get these numbers out of those. That's probably not exactly correct because that will only give you one condition. Okay, so I suppose you do need the eigenvector matrix then. But it's already interesting that the form of the solution is known. It's some linear combination of exponentials with the eigenvalues occurring on the top. Okay, I guess I will stop there. Are there any comments or questions?